Welcome to Edith Stoic, your space for raw conversations and life lessons. Ever had that gut feeling someone wasn't telling you the whole truth, like their words were polished, but something just didn't sit right? Those moments of doubt make us question everything. Not just what we're hearing, but who we're hearing it from. Deception wears many faces. Sometimes it comes from strangers, but the real heartbreak, when it comes from the people we thought would never hurt us, the ones we trusted most. So how do you spot the lie when it's hidden behind a smile? How do you see the truth when it's buried in half answers and subtle body language? This is where the wisdom of the Stoics comes in, an ancient philosophy that's more relevant today than ever. Stoicism teaches us to stay calm, think clearly, and never let emotions cloud our judgment. With that mindset, we begin to notice the tiny shifts, the hesitations, the over-explanations, the eyes that don't match the words. In this video, we'll break down 7 subtle signs someone might be lying to you, and how to use Stoic thinking to uncover the truth beneath the surface. Join us on this journey, not just to expose dishonesty, but to strengthen your mind, sharpen your instincts, and face deception with calm, clarity, and confidence. When someone quickly changes the subject, what are they really hiding? Have you ever brought something up in a conversation only for the other person to suddenly pivot the topic, as if your question had never been asked? It's subtle, often brushed off as casual or harmless, but more often than not, that sudden shift in subject is anything but random. It can be a red flag, a quiet alarm that something's being hidden, and when we look at it through the lens of Stoic philosophy, the meaning behind this behavior becomes even clearer. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius taught that truth and self-awareness are essential to living a free and fulfilled life. Avoidance, then, is a symptom not of confidence, but of fear. When someone abruptly changes the topic, especially when confronted with a direct question or uncomfortable truth, it's usually not because they're uninterested or forgetful. It's because your question hit a nerve. They may be afraid of exposure, ashamed of something left undone, unwilling to take responsibility, or maybe they simply don't want to deal with the consequences that honesty might bring. Imagine this scenario. You ask a coworker for an update on a task they were responsible for. Instead of answering, they begin talking enthusiastically about other tasks they've completed, painting themselves as productive and capable, while quietly dodging the one thing that truly matters in the moment. To a casual observer, it might seem harmless, even polite, but to someone who's paying attention, the deflection speaks volumes. As Epictetus once said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself with excuses. Instead say, he must not know all my faults, or he would not have mentioned only these. This quote isn't just about humility, it's about honesty, the courage to face truth without flinching. When someone can't do that, when they scramble to change the subject, it tells you that they're more afraid of being seen than they are interested in being understood. In the workplace, in relationships, even in casual conversation, this pattern shows up more often than we like to admit. Someone is asked a hard question. Their tone shifts. Their words become vague. They suddenly steer the conversation in a new direction. They might even turn the attention back on you, asking questions or raising unrelated points to distract you. But here's the deeper question. Are you willing to follow where that avoidance leads? Or will you, too, let the truth slip away? Stoicism doesn't ask us to be aggressive truth seekers, but it does ask us to be mindful, to observe, to listen, and to think critically. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, you can't control whether someone lies, deflects, or avoids, but you can control how you respond. You don't need to get angry or accusatory. In fact, Stoicism urges us not to. Emotional overreaction only clouds our judgment. Instead, you respond with clarity. You observe without assumption. You ask follow-up questions with calm precision. Take this example in a conversation about a failed business venture. One of the entrepreneurs suddenly changes the topic when asked about what went wrong. Instead of providing a clear answer, they start talking about future projects, and how much potential they still have. This isn't just optimism, it might be a shield, a way to avoid taking accountability or hiding something they're not ready to admit. Maybe it's fear of judgment, maybe it's ego, but the red flag is there, waving in the silence between your question and their pivot. Seneca, another great Stoic, once wrote, "He who is brave is free." And bravery, in this context, isn't just about bold action. It's about facing hard truths, whether in yourself or in others. So, when someone quickly changes the subject, don't ignore it. Don't get defensive either. Instead, ask yourself, what are they running from? And more importantly, do I have the courage to gently bring the conversation back to what matters? In the end, that quick change of subject might seem like a small thing, a moment easily missed. But if you're paying attention, it's a powerful clue, a window into someone's fear, discomfort, or guilt. And when you meet it with a calm, steady mind, a stoic mind, you'll be far more equipped to see through the facade and uncover the truth, not with aggression, but with grace. Because truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is always better than comfort built on lies. When defensiveness speaks louder than words, a stoic perspective on truth and deception. You ask a simple question, no accusations, no assumptions, just genuine curiosity. And suddenly, the person in front of you bristles. Their tone sharpens, and they fire back with, "Why are you accusing me?" Or, "Why don't you trust me?" Sound familiar? This kind of reaction is more than just a red flag. It's often a reflection of an inner conflict, a fear of being exposed, or a need to protect a carefully constructed lie. In Stoic philosophy, maintaining a calm and rational mind, especially in moments of discomfort, is considered a mark of strength. When someone reacts with outsized defensiveness, especially when there's no clear reason to do so, it reveals more about their internal state than whatever situation you're questioning. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said in Meditations, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. I seek the truth," which never harmed anyone. A person with nothing to hide doesn't fear the truth. They welcome it. But someone who overreacts to even the softest inquiry, that's not confidence. It's cover. Let's be clear, not all defensiveness is deceit. Sometimes it stems from past trauma, insecurity, or misunderstanding. But when someone consistently dodges questions, turns the tables, or gets aggressive over minor concerns, it's worth asking, what are they trying so hard to protect? Take this common scenario. You ask a colleague about a decision they made at work, not to confront, just to understand. Instead of explaining, they respond with, "Why do you always assume I'm wrong?" Or, "That's not my fault." Okay? The emotional spike doesn't match the tone of your question. This is a tactic, intentional or not, to shift the focus, to make you feel guilty for asking, so they never have to answer. This type of reaction can quickly derail communication and cloud the original issue. As Epictetus wrote in Discourses, "A man cannot learn what he thinks he already knows." Someone who refuses to hear another perspective and instead launches into defense mode is not looking for truth. They're looking for shelter. Shelter from being questioned. Shelter from accountability. In relationships, this behavior can be even more damaging. Imagine asking your partner about a night out, and they snap back with, "Why don't you trust me?" Or, "You're always so suspicious." These responses don't answer your question. They turn your curiosity into an accusation. The real issue, it deflects the spotlight and replaces it with guilt. Over time, you begin to second-guess yourself. Maybe you were overthinking. Maybe it was just a harmless question. But here's what Stoicism reminds us. Clarity is never the enemy of honesty. If someone truly has nothing to hide, they won't fear questions. They'll welcome them as a chance to build trust, not avoid it. When we sense unreasonable defensiveness, we need to pause and ask ourselves a critical question. Is this person reacting because they're hurt or because they're hiding something? It's not about judging harshly. It's about seeking truth without emotion clouding the process. The Stoics encourage us to look beyond the surface, to remain steady even when others are not, and to observe rather than instantly react. And here's the paradox. The more someone defends themselves unnecessarily, the more they expose the very thing they're trying to hide. Silence can be telling. So can anger. So can a perfect story with too perfect details. The Stoic mind doesn't jump to conclusions, but it doesn't ignore signs either. It watches, it listens, it pays attention to the emotional imbalance in a response and sees it not as noise, but as a clue. At the end of the day, the truth doesn't need protection. It stands on its own, and the people who stand with it, they don't flinch at questions, they don't shift blame, they don't react with fear. They answer clearly, calmly, honestly, because for those who value truth, there's nothing to defend. When a story is too perfect, it's probably a lie. Let's be honest, real life is messy, human memory is flawed, emotions are unpredictable, and when people speak the truth, it often comes out raw and imperfect. So what does it mean when someone tells a story that sounds too perfect? It's a red flag, a big one. When someone is being honest, their story usually comes with natural pauses, hesitations, and gaps. They might forget small details or mix up the sequence of events. That's because the brain doesn't work like a recording device. We don't store every moment with crystal clarity, especially in emotionally charged or complex situations. But liars, they do the opposite. People who lie often overcompensate. They add excessive, polished details to make their version of events sound airtight. They rehearse the story in their heads, carefully aligning facts, perfecting the timeline, and eliminating inconsistencies, all in the hopes of sounding more believable. But ironically, it's that very perfection that often gives them away. As the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Truth doesn't need to be dressed up. It doesn't need a perfect script. It just is. The Lance Armstrong illusion. One of the clearest modern examples of this is cyclist Lance Armstrong. For years, Armstrong captivated the world with a seemingly flawless story. A man who beat cancer, then went on to win 7 consecutive Tour de France titles. His narrative was packed with inspiring details. Intense training, clean living, mental toughness. Every piece of his story felt carefully arranged to paint him as a superhero. And we bought it. Why? Because the story was inspiring and perfectly told. Too perfect. What we didn't know at the time was that the same man who told those detailed stories was hiding a massive lie. Armstrong wasn't winning clean. He was doping throughout his career. The meticulous image he'd created wasn't built on truth, but on manipulation. He even attacked and discredited those who dared to speak out against him. But eventually, the truth caught up, and the flawless story shattered. The Stoics would say this was inevitable. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Armstrong didn't need to tell perfect stories. He needed to live with integrity. And he didn't. That was his downfall. His carefully curated details weren't a reflection of truth. They were a smokescreen to cover deceit, the trap of over-polished details. So what can we learn from this? When someone gives you a story that's too neat, too emotionally calculated, or packed with oddly specific details that feel rehearsed, pause. Step back. Ask yourself, are they trying to convince me, or are they just telling the truth? Truth is naturally simple. It may be incomplete or messy, but it doesn't require decoration. Lies, on the other hand, often come dressed in flawless packaging because the person telling them needs you to believe. They're trying to manage your perception, distract from inconsistencies, or cover up a deeper truth. As Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." If someone is reacting to scrutiny by crafting an overly controlled, polished narrative, it's worth questioning what's really going on behind the scenes. No one who's truly honest needs to sound perfect, because life isn't perfect. And people who are telling the truth don't need to convince you. They just share what happened. Listen beyond the words. Whether it's a public figure, a coworker, a partner, or a friend, be mindful when someone starts painting a picture that's a little too flawless. That kind of perfection isn't real, and it usually comes at a cost. Stoic wisdom reminds us to listen with calm clarity, not with blind trust. Not every polished story is a lie, but every lie needs polish. So next time you hear one that sounds just a little too smooth, ask yourself, is this the truth or just a beautifully packaged illusion? Because sometimes the lie isn't in what they say, it's in how perfectly they say it when they turn away. The silent signal of dishonesty. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone suddenly shifts their body away from you? Not dramatically, but just enough to notice. Maybe they avoid eye contact. Maybe their feet point toward the exit. Maybe their posture closes off, folding inward like a shield. It's subtle, easy to miss, but often it means something more than words ever could. When someone turns their body away from you, especially in the middle of a serious conversation, it's not always just discomfort. It can be a signal, a red flag, a silent confession that something isn't being said. Telling the truth is uncomfortable. Lying is even more so. And while people might be able to control their words, their body often speaks first. That's where the real story is told. Body language is a powerful, instinctive form of nonverbal communication. And when someone physically distances themselves from you, especially during a moment that demands honesty, it's not just about personal space. It's about emotional escape. It could be fear of being found out, fear of confrontation, or the weight of carrying a truth they don't want to share. Stoicism and the art of reading people. The Stoics knew the power of calm observation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That means what we think and what we hide eventually bleeds into how we behave. Thoughts become body language, and when the thoughts are dishonest, that truth begins to leak through in posture, gestures, and nervous energy. Let's say you're in a meeting, you ask your teammate a direct question about a delayed project. They smile, nod, and give you a rehearsed answer. But their body turns slightly away. Their hands fidget, and their feet shift under the table. Their words sound fine, but their body says something's off. In moments like this, the Stoic response is not to explode, accuse, or instantly judge. Instead, it's to remain calm, observant, and detached from emotion. Emotions cloud judgment. But clarity comes when you choose not to react, but to reflect. Ask yourself, what is their body trying to protect? Is there a fear behind their avoidance? Can I create a space where honesty feels safe? These questions allow you to engage with curiosity, not conflict, and that makes all the difference. Real-life examples. This isn't just about business meetings or high-stakes situations. It happens in everyday life. A friend might subtly turn away when you bring up a topic they're avoiding. A partner might cross their arms or shift in their seat when you ask a vulnerable question. Even strangers, during a negotiation or tough conversation, may start unconsciously retreating when the truth is uncomfortable. The body speaks. You just have to be quiet enough to listen. And here's the thing, it's not always about catching a lie. Sometimes that shift in body language isn't deception. It's fear. Fear of judgment, fear of consequences, fear of disappointing someone they care about. That's why Stoicism teaches patience, not paranoia. We don't observe to accuse, we observe to understand. The power of a calm presence. When someone turns their back on you, literally or figuratively, your greatest strength is your stillness. Don't chase them. Don't confront with fire. Hold your ground, breathe, and watch. When you remain calm, you give them room to tell the truth on their own terms. You invite honesty without force. And most importantly, you protect your own peace. Because at the end of the day, your role is not to control others, but to control yourself. That's the core of Stoicism. Clarity over chaos, reason over reaction. So the next time someone avoids your gaze, shifts in their seat, or physically withdraws when you bring up something real, pay attention. Their body might be telling the story, their mouth won't. And remember, truth isn't just heard, it's seen. When laughter hides the truth, the quiet warning behind jokes in serious moments. Have you ever sat across from someone while discussing something deeply serious, maybe a relationship issue, a mistake at work, or even a moral dilemma, and instead of getting a thoughtful response, you're met with a laugh. Not the warm kind that brings connection, but the deflective, awkward chuckle, a poorly timed joke, a shrug, and a smirk, as if your concern didn't matter. It's a strange feeling, isn't it? You're trying to reach the core of something real, and they meet you with humor, light, dismissive, and unsettling. That's not just poor communication, that's a red flag. Why do people laugh when they should be honest? Why joke when the moment calls for sincerity? According to Stoic philosophy, this kind of response isn't accidental. It's avoidance, dressed up as amusement. The Stoics, particularly thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, believed that our reactions to the world reveal far more about us than the world itself. Men are disturbed not by things, Epictetus said, but by the views which they take of them. In other words, the way someone responds to truth, especially uncomfortable truth, speaks volumes about their character, values, and inner stability. Laughter, in this context, becomes a shield. It's a subtle but powerful way people distance themselves from accountability, from emotional vulnerability, or from confronting something they fear. When someone uses humor to sidestep a serious issue, they're often protecting themselves, not from you, but from the discomfort of facing their own flaws or fears. Think about it. Have you ever called someone out, gently or directly, and their immediate response was a joke? "Oh, come on. Don't be so serious," they might say, or maybe they laugh nervously, trying to change the topic. That isn't confidence. That's insecurity wearing a mask. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic sage, once wrote, "A man's worth is measured by the worth of what he values." If someone avoids important conversations by reducing them to punchlines, what does that say about what they value? It suggests they might prioritize comfort, control, or ego over honesty, growth, or connection. This pattern shows up everywhere. In workplaces, where someone laughs off being late or making a serious mistake. In relationships, when a partner jokes about cheating rumors instead of directly addressing them. Even in family dynamics, where older wounds get brushed aside with, "It's in the past, let's not be dramatic." But as you probably know deep down, ignoring truth doesn't make it go away. And laughter, when used to avoid reality, becomes dangerous, not just for the person using it, but for those around them. From a Stoic point of view, truth should always be faced with clarity, composure, and courage. It doesn't mean we need to be cold or humorless. The Stoics weren't against laughter, but they warned against using it as a tool to run from reality. In fact, learning to recognize how someone reacts to truth is a kind of emotional intelligence. Words can lie, but tone, body language, and timing rarely do. When someone laughs inappropriately during a serious moment, don't just let it slide. Observe. Ask yourself, what are they avoiding? What are they hiding? And more importantly, why? Not all laughter is sinister. Sometimes it's nervousness. Sometimes it's confusion. But when laughter becomes a pattern in serious conversations, it's often a sign of emotional immaturity or an unwillingness to take responsibility. That's when it's time to draw boundaries. You don't need to confront everyone who avoids the truth, but you do need to protect your peace. If someone consistently refuses to engage with important topics, their avoidance will eventually become your emotional burden. The Stoics believed that we must train ourselves to see clearly, not just with our eyes, but with our reason, to know when someone's laughter is lighthearted and when it's a mask. So next time someone laughs at the wrong moment, pause. Look beyond the smile, because sometimes that smile is hiding everything they don't want you or themselves to face. When vagueness speaks louder than words, how avoiding details often reveals the truth. Let's talk about something subtle, but incredibly telling. Vagueness. You ask someone a simple, direct question, and instead of a clear answer, you get something foggy, "I don't really remember," or "We'll get to that later," or "It's complicated." Sound familiar? It might seem harmless. After all, not everyone's a great communicator, right? But here's the thing. Vagueness under pressure is rarely accidental. When someone dodges details, especially when the situation calls for clarity, it's often not a lack of memory or communication skill. It's a defense mechanism. It's a red flag. There's an old saying, Truth is clear, lies are blurry. It might sound poetic, but it's also psychologically spot on. People who are telling the truth tend to speak with confidence and detail because they're recalling something that actually happened. But when someone's hiding something or trying to spin a story, that's when the fog rolls in. From a Stoic perspective, vagueness is a symptom of something deeper, a fear of the truth. As Epictetus emphasized, those who aren't honest with themselves will always struggle to be honest with others. Instead of confronting reality, they hide behind ambiguity. They mask their discomfort with half answers and vague language, not to deceive you completely, but to buy time, to control the narrative, or simply to avoid shame. Let's take this out of the abstract and into the real world. Imagine you're watching a high-level interview with the CEO of a major corporation. The interviewer asks about recent financial losses or a drop in revenue. Instead of giving hard numbers or a clear strategy, the CEO responds with something like, "We're optimistic about our future," or "Those figures will be released in due time." Now ask yourself, why not just tell the truth? Vagueness, in moments that demand transparency, is rarely a sign of confidence. It can indicate a lack of preparation, sure, but more often, it's a signal that the truth might be uncomfortable, and they're trying to avoid the fallout. The same goes for personal relationships. If you ask your partner or friend about something important, where they were last weekend, what they meant by something they said, or how they really feel about a situation, and they respond with vague, non-committal phrases like, "I don't remember," or "Let's not get into that right now," your instincts should perk up. People who value honesty don't hide behind ambiguity. They speak openly, even when it's difficult, because they understand that trust depends on it. As Seneca once wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." Gratitude and honesty go hand in hand. When someone chooses to be vague, especially in moments that require clarity, they're not just avoiding the truth, they're undermining the trust that relationships are built on. And this isn't limited to business or personal life. It's everywhere. Politics is a breeding ground for vagueness. Watch any politician deflect a direct question about past decisions or controversial policies. Notice how quickly the topic shifts or how often they speak in generalities with no concrete facts. Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies in facing the truth, not hiding from it. A real leader doesn't fear tough questions. They own their actions, even their mistakes, and they present them plainly, because transparency builds trust. Vagueness, that breeds suspicion. So next time someone gives you a blurry, unclear answer when the moment calls for detail, pause and ask yourself, why are they avoiding specifics? What are they afraid to reveal? In most cases, vagueness is not about protecting your feelings. It's about protecting themselves. The Stoics believed that clarity is power, and in a world full of blurred lines, your ability to spot evasiveness gives you a massive advantage. It allows you to see beyond the surface, to question with purpose, and to protect your peace from those who manipulate with shadows. So here's the takeaway. When people avoid details, don't ignore it. Pay attention, because silence isn't the only way to lie. Sometimes it's the words they don't say that speak the loudest. The truth about listening. Why real understanding reveals who's honest and who's not. In a world where everyone is rushing to speak, those who know how to truly listen hold the real power. Listening, not just hearing, is an underrated skill that reveals far more than most people realize. It's not just about being polite or nodding at the right times. It's about presence, empathy, and the willingness to understand someone else before jumping in with your own opinion. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor, once wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." This isn't just ancient wisdom. It's a compass for how to navigate conversations in the modern world. When you listen with patience and discipline, you gain insight. When you rush to react, you miss the truth. Here's something most people don't want to admit. When someone is constantly interrupting, deflecting, or overly eager to respond, they're not really listening. And more often than not, it's a red flag. These behaviors aren't just rude. They can be signs of dishonesty or manipulation. Let's break it down. Listening to react versus listening to understand. You've probably been in a conversation where someone clearly wasn't hearing you. Maybe it was a partner, a friend, or a coworker. You try to explain something important, but they cut you off mid-sentence. Instead of engaging with what you said, they jump straight into defending themselves or spinning their version of the story. This isn't just poor communication, it's a tactic. And whether intentional or subconscious, it often masks a deeper truth. They might be hiding something. True listening is uncomfortable. It requires you to set your ego aside. It demands focus, calmness, and a willingness to hear something you might not like. Dishonest people avoid that discomfort. They don't want to sit in silence and reflect. They want to control the narrative. The politician's playbook. Want a public example? Look at how politicians behave during tough interviews. When journalists ask hard-hitting questions, pay attention to what happens. Do they pause and reflect? Or do they dodge, change the subject, or launch into a defensive monologue? Take the case of former U.S. President Richard Nixon during the Watergate scandal. When confronted with uncomfortable questions, Nixon often responded with vague or unrelated answers. Instead of engaging with the inquiry, he sidestepped, misdirected, and pushed back. Classic signs of evasion. The message: when people aren't truly listening, they're often trying to hide the truth. In personal relationships, it matters even more. This doesn't just apply to public figures. In your personal life, listening is the foundation of trust. And when it's absent, things fall apart fast. If someone close to you constantly shifts the conversation, dismisses your feelings, or seems more interested in defending themselves than understanding you, take notice. It might not just be selfishness, it might be dishonesty. Whether it's emotional dishonesty, not being open about how they really feel, or flat-out lies, their unwillingness to truly hear you is a warning sign. Stoic philosophy teaches us that we must listen not only to others, but to ourselves. When we feel a disconnect, when something seems off in a conversation, that's your inner wisdom nudging you. Pay attention. Ask yourself, are they listening to understand or just waiting for their turn to speak? That one question can reveal everything. Listening as a measure of integrity. Genuine listening is a reflection of character. It shows self-control, humility, and respect. When someone listens with intention, making eye contact, processing your words, responding thoughtfully, that's a person you can trust. But when they cut you off, talk over you, or dodge your questions, trust them less, or not at all. Honest people don't need to rush to defend themselves. They don't panic in silence. They listen because they have nothing to hide. The Stoic response to dishonesty, turning deceit into strength. Dishonesty, especially when it comes from those we trust, can feel like a punch to the gut. It shakes our sense of safety, challenges our perception of others, and often leaves us questioning ourselves. But from the lens of Stoic philosophy, betrayal and lies are not tragedies to be feared. They are tests, opportunities, moments for transformation. The Stoic doesn't live in fear of lies, nor do they waste time seeking vengeance or obsessing over why someone betrayed their trust. Instead, they observe, they reflect, and above all, they choose to remain calm and centered, no matter how turbulent the situation. As the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This isn't just poetic wisdom. It's a call to personal mastery. When someone lies to you, the impulse might be to lash out, retreat, or allow anger to consume you. But none of those reactions serve you. They give power to the liar, allowing their dishonesty to shape your inner world. The Stoic, however, does the opposite. They maintain clarity of mind. They choose peace over pettiness, strength over spite. That's not to say dishonesty doesn't hurt. It does. But pain, to the Stoic, is a teacher, not an enemy. When someone deceives us, we are presented with a rare opportunity, a chance to sharpen our discernment, refine our emotional intelligence, and test the boundaries of our self-control. Recognizing the signs of dishonesty, whether it's avoidance, inconsistency, over-explaining, or defensiveness, isn't just about protecting yourself from being misled. It's about gaining insight into human nature. It's about understanding others more clearly and, in turn, understanding yourself. The Stoic mindset doesn't mean becoming cold or cynical. It means becoming resilient. It means knowing that people will sometimes disappoint you. and choosing to rise above it anyway. It means learning to respond rather than react. When you live by Stoic principles, you start to see dishonesty for what it truly is, a reflection of the other person's character, not a reflection of your worth. Someone's lie says more about them than it ever could about you, and your response says everything about who you are becoming. So what should we do when faced with dishonesty? First, remain grounded. Don't let someone else's lack of integrity shake your own. Maintain your values, your composure, your dignity. Second, observe. Use the experience to better understand human behavior. The Stoic is always a student of life, and even betrayal has its lessons. Third, act with intention. You don't need to explode, retreat, or punish. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply withdrawing your energy quietly, firmly, and without drama. And finally, protect your peace, not by building walls, but by setting boundaries, not by fearing people, but by choosing wisely who you let close. In the end, the goal is not to avoid being lied to. That's impossible. The goal is to become the kind of person who cannot be shaken by lies, someone whose peace doesn't depend on the honesty of others, but on the strength of their own mind. A Stoic mind is not broken by deceit. It is shaped by it, refined like steel in fire. So if someone has lied to you, don't let that moment define you. Let it forge you. Let it teach you clarity, patience, and courage. Let it remind you of the one thing no one can ever take from you, your ability to choose how you respond. Because in the end, your power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. If you found this video valuable, hit like to support the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss future content. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.